Going inside Memorial Sports, this is the Panther Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the High School Fan Zone on a Monday night. I almost said Tuesday night. I'm trying to skip ahead too fast. We're going to jump into the Panther Fan Zone. I told you I was going to go back and talk about this real quick. This is fitting because these are basketball players and a basketball coach sitting next to me that I'm going to introduce in a second. I mentioned that the TABC preseason rankings came out earlier today. I want to run through the Lubbock teams that got a mention here. In Class 6A, I think these girls will appreciate this. Friendship is ranked number 10 in Class 6A to begin the season, which is probably pretty accurate. I think did y'all finish? You finished pretty high in the rankings before the playoffs last year. In Class 5A, defending or reigning state champion, the best way to say that, Lubbock Monterey, or just Monterey, is ranked number 2, and they have both Friendship and Monterey have a couple of D1 players coming back, so that's very fair, I think. And I think that's it in the public school. Let me get to the private schools because a bunch of them are mentioned here. But Jason Cooper, I don't think they're not giving Coach Jenna much respect yet. She needs to prove them wrong here pretty quick.
Yeah, they got some work to do, but they can get there.
Work to do, but yeah. I bet after talking to her and a couple of their girls, I feel like they're not far off. So in Class 4A in TAPS, Lubbock Christian, the 5-time in a row state champion, is ranked number 1 in TAPS 4A, and in TAPS 2A, I'm sure there's somebody in here from Lubbock, maybe not. Oh, I was wrong. San Jacinto from Amarillo is in there, which is really good. Was a 4A team, or was a 3A team with Lubbock Christian for a few years. Oh, they didn't sneak Trinity Christian in there. So we'll come back. When we come back, we'll talk about the boys' rankings. I mentioned somebody who I think you know, Jason, Estacado, Tony Wagner, where they're ranked number 3 to start the year. I was a little bit disappointed that the Liberty boys were not ranked to begin the year. I think they're going to be really good as well. But I also think these Memorial girls in their first year are going to be very good. If you're watching on TV, to my far left is Jason Cooper, the Memorial Panthers. Are you guys going to go by Panthers or Lady Panthers?
Panthers.
All right, if you're following that friendship model, I'm absolutely good with that. And we'll let these girls introduce themselves because if you're listening on radio, you're not going to be able to see who's talking. So,
I'm Kiana Jones.
I'm Zosha Story.
And the reason that I've gotten to know these two girls a little bit last year and then earlier when we talked before, they both played on Friendship's varsity last year. When I say played, they were very prominent players off the bench for a team that went, how deep did y'all go last year? Four rounds deep. I think it was the furthest that Friendship's gone as a 6A girls program. Same thing happened with the boys. And I think that's a great foundation. And I'm going to pull the curtain back on something. When they started sending out the coaches that they were hiring at Memorial, some of the names resonated with me. And when I got the one saying Jason Cooper was the girls basketball coach, I was like, it must be another Jason Cooper. It's not this Jason Cooper, because I'm going to make Coach blush a little bit. The dude to my far left here is as accomplished a coach as you can imagine hiring at a brand new high school. I'm going to try to run through some of your resume. You help me. Wayland Baptist, Sudan, Canadian?
Claude.
I knew it was somewhere up there. Yeah. And daughter Jenna Cooper Jackson played for you at which one?
She played for me at Claude and at Wayland.
Okay. I knew she played at Wayland because and you also coached another coach in town at Wayland.
Yeah. Wait, I'm drawing a blank here.
Monterey.
Oh, well, Chelsea was my assistant.
Okay, she's an assistant coach.
Yeah. She's a good one.
So your coaching tree, beyond what you've accomplished as a coach, is already starting to grow some pretty stout branches. And I remember when we talked before, this job had to – you don't leave a program like Wayland unless something really gets your attention or kind of appeals to you. What about this job got your attention?
Well, I started, I played at Wayland, and then I started helping with the women's basketball program there back in '99. And through that time, I just started following all these teams around the area like Nazareth and Canyon and Plainview and all their success that they had. And I just always admired the history. Of course, the history of the Flying Queens is second to none. Mm-hmm. And just women's basketball history and how those teams started and how they became great and sustained that greatness for so long. And I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to start from ground zero and build traditions and, be a part of that story. Hopefully, 20, 30 years from now, people are talking about all the amazing things that we've done at Memorial.
Make sure I keep you out of trouble. You probably also paid a little bit of attention to shallow water because...
Yeah, shallow water is definitely somewhere that's close to my heart. My wife is a shallow water graduate. My sister-in-law played at shallow water, so they all played for Chuck Darden. So he was pretty good, I think.
Yeah, you'd have to go way back to find somebody who didn't play for Chuck Darden in girls basketball here. I think he told me the other day he was the head coach in one school for 43 years.
Yeah,
that's mind-boggling to me. I'm sorry, girls. We're talking about history and all that stuff. You guys want to talk about what's going on? I mentioned that I saw these two girls play last year, and both of you guys were, that's the word I want to use, you were not fazed by being out there with on a really good team against other 6A teams. Kiana, especially those last couple of games, I know Coach Hilliard talked about, I needed her out there to handle the ball. How old were you last year, 14?
Mm-hmm, 14.
Grab that mic there. What was that like to experience that as a 14-year-old freshman playing against really good 6A teams, especially late in the season?
It was hard sometimes, but I enjoyed it for the most part. I was used to it.
You didn't look like it bothered you at all. I'm trying to think the game. I covered your last few games, not the one that didn't end the way you guys wanted. The one before, when you guys won at the very end. That's the kind of stuff that I'm going to guess Coach is pretty happy that you guys got that experience in those kind of games. What did that do for you going into the off season? Because you're already a confident girl. I could tell that right from the very beginning.
I can't think of it.
Well, some of the things that she told me going in, even in early last spring, was just, she learned a lot about herself and things that she needed to work on and improve on. So I think she's definitely going to carry that into the new season.
And Zosha, I remember Coach telling me he said, when I needed a big shot, we're going to throw Zosha in the game and let her take a shot. We're coming up on a break, so think about that for a second. When we come back, we'll talk about it. In the Panther fan zone in the high school fan zone on 100.7 The Score.
This is the Panther Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the Panther Fan Zone. I'm Randy Rosetta. This is 100.7 The Score. We're talking Memorial Panther girls basketball. They start, what do we say, November 8th? Mm-hmm. Our helper over there, Danny Story, is helping feed me information here, not at Starbucks, but in the studio. November 8th against
Seminole,
which is a really good program just right off the bat. You're not wading into the shallow end.
No, we tried to get our schedule, where we had some challenges early to figure out who we are, and when you play good teams, you figure out things you need to fix in a hurry. And our district season starts so early. There's not a whole lot of time to mess around. So we've got some really good tests early. We've got Seminole, Tascosa, who's in the rankings, Midland Christian, and Nazareth. Those are our first games. So we'll be playing some tough teams and getting tested early and often.
Are you taking these girls up to Nazareth?
Yes.
Okay.
I figured everybody needs to experience that.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's where that's the last place I saw you and John, until I connected with you when you got the job, because I was up there covering a Liberty Olton basketball game. Right. And that was the first time I'd been there. My late father-in-law, who you knew, kept telling me, go up there for a game, go up there. And especially for that tournament, he bragged about the cinnamon rolls. I was like, whatever.
They do it right. If you want to go somewhere with basketball tradition, really boys and girls, there's nowhere better than Nazareth.
All right. So now you two are up here. When I talked to you before, it was still pretty new. I think, was that the first day of school? Or it was the first week of school, I think. Mm-hmm. You guys were just getting used to Coach. Coach was getting used to you. It's been a few months now, Zosha. What's the transition been like for you, first of all, at a brand new school, but also getting used to Coach Cooper?
At the brand new school, it's been really calm. Like, we've been working hard, and again, from our past interview, we talked about all gas, no brakes, and that's what it's been like.
It should be calm at your school here. There's no older teenagers to create that much drama. So, Kiana, what about you? What have you learned about Coach these first few months that makes you glad that you are where you are?
I've learned a lot. I don't know. God.
What does he expect from you, do you think? I know I mentioned how Coach Hilliard was ready to lean on you last year as a freshman. You're an old, grizzled sophomore now. What do you think Coach needs you to do for this team?
I just think he needs me to be a leader and be very vocal and get my team where they're supposed to be.
I think that's what he told me when we talked before, and that's easy to hear that from a coach. Is that part of your personality? Or do I need to ask Zosha that?
Being vocal is not.
It's not? I thought watching you last year, you didn't seem shy on the court.
I knew I had to be vocal.
There you go. Zosha, is she a good leader? She become a good leader?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to say become. That sounds like she wasn't before. You played with her for a while. You played with her. You guys kind of had to watch and observe on the friendship bench. How has she kind of evolved a little bit more now, stepping into a different role?
Definitely talking more. With the younger kids, it's harder to kind of get them in the situation you need them to be, so just pushing them to get there.
Correct me up when you talk about younger kids, because you're freshmen and sophomores.
Yeah.
Which, Jason, I told you I wanted to mention this. When we talked before, you're coming from Wayland, which you get girls there, they're 19, 20, and it's a little bit different environment there. You may have, who is your oldest player, or how old is your oldest player?
The whole COVID situation. I mean, yes. Last year I had multiple girls that were 25, 26 years old. So it's been different. We've celebrated 14th birthdays, So
yes.
It's, the mentality, and I'd say about these two girls, they're not your typical sophomores. They play a lot in the summer, and they have a lot of great experience. I think that the biggest challenge, when we're trying to run a play on offense, or is getting everybody where they're supposed to be. And that's the hard thing, that we don't have the older kids to kind of push them in the right direction. So these two have to do all of that. Which
I know, watching this with Liberty the first year, it's hard for kids that age for somebody to say, that's our leader, or I'm the leader. They all have to kind of figure it out as they grow. But I'm a two-time girl dad. I know you're a girl and a boy dad, but when the message gets through to teenage girls, you don't have to keep repeating it. It's a nice way of saying it. So
definitely.
We're coming up on the second break. We'll be back right after this on the High School Fan Zone and the Panther Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Going inside Memorial Sports, this is the Panther Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Welcome back into the Panther Fan Zone. I am Randy Rosetta. Usually we just talk about what happened last week for a team and start looking ahead at next week. We don't get to do that with these girls for a few weeks until they play Seminole on November 8th. Was that at home or on the road?
On the road.
When is your first home game? I think
that following Tuesday, so I think it's the 11th. Is that right, against Tascosa?
Oh, well, there's another. I'm trying to think how far. I don't remember how deep they went in the playoffs. I do know that Monterey to Amarillo High and Tascosa all last year bounced around in the top 5A and in the top 5 in Class 5A.
Yeah, they're a good team. They're a good program, and they got a new coach, so they'll be a little bit different, but I'm sure it'll be a challenge. So,
how excited are you two for November 8th, for that finally to get here, so you can put those uniforms on and go out on that brand new court and do your thing?
Extremely excited.
Me as well.
I was actually there. I hope Brian Gerlich doesn't get mad at me. I hope he doesn't get mad at you. I actually got to see the court the same day these girls did for the first time. The volleyball's breaking it in for you a little bit. What's it going to be like? You guys played in the pit, the Tiger Pit, last year. Now you get to it's like trading in your keys for an even newer car. Have you gone to volleyball matches to kind of get a feel for what the environment's like, and what's your impression of the gym?
It's extremely nice. Volleyball has done great with the court, so it's fun to see.
Who's going to score the first bucket? You guys, I think we discussed that before. Isn't there like you guys going to draw straws to see who gets to shoot first, or
whoever runs transition first?
Yeah.
Kiana, you're like the point guard, right? You kind of get to pull the strings on that. If you have Zosha open, are you going to pass to her, or are you going to try to take the first shot?
I'm going to pass it to Zosha.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
A good coaching answer.
That's the right answer, yeah.
Jason, watching these girls, knowing how excited they are, and because they're younger, it's going to be a little bit tricky to, at times, find where their emotional barometer is. We talked about you coaching at different age of girls. What have you learned about them these first couple of weeks that you hope you understand when the season gets here?
Well, I think that, going into the situation that I came into, I was a little maybe shy about like going too hard on them, a little gun shy about it. Didn't want to, have, hurt feelings, get people crying, when you get intense.
Yes.
And I think that I've learned that these girls, they rise to the expectation. So I think every week we've gone a little bit harder, added some stuff, coached them a little bit harder, getting them to the point where they're ready to play in a varsity game. I think that'll be the biggest thing. The old saying, you don't know what you don't know. And these guys have a little bit of experience, but they also had a couple of Division I caliber girls on the team with them last year to do the heavy lifting, and they've got to be the heavy lifters this year, and be there in support of some of these younger girls that are a freshman coming into a varsity situation. A lot of times they're just out there trying to survive, and we got to lean on these girls to help keep those kids' heads in the game, so they don't have the privilege of or the opportunity to lose their heads.
There's a little bit of difference about playing in front of 40 people at Heritage Middle School or Alcove Trails and stepping onto the court. So, Kiana, for both of you, what's your advice to those younger girls? Because you've played in varsity games at high levels. What's your advice to them about what they have to be ready for?
They just have to be ready to play hard, because everybody's going to be faster and stronger than them, so they just have to play. Maybe
not all the time, and not for long, because I bet Coach also has introduced you guys to the weight room a little bit. What about you? What are you going to tell? Because you guys stepped on that court. That first time you stepped on the court, I imagine some eyes were pretty big. What's your advice to some of those younger girls?
Just keeping your head and staying calm. From the first time, I know from my experience, when I first stepped on the court, I was a little nervous because I didn't want to mess up. But once you get in the flow, you just get in the flow.
Yep. At some point, it just becomes basketball. And when you've got a pretty good coach over there, that absolutely helps get you ready. We talked a little bit about the schedule when we were there. You were kind of still working on, besides the early season, besides the district, which you guys jumped right in with Liberty, Estacado, Levelland, Snyder, Big Spring. We're coming up to the end here, but just real quick, what are some of the other highlights of the schedule?
Well, we're playing in the Friendship Tournament.
Okay.
So there'll be some good competition there. We're playing the Caprock Tournament. I think those are good highlights, and then hopefully we'll go down to New Home and compete well down there.
And like I said, that district is not for the faint of heart. That's as good as it gets in small school girls basketball in West Texas. That wraps us up in the Panther Fan Zone. We'll be back in the Patriot Fan Zone after this break.